Have you ever stopped to think about how many lessons Jesus left us beyond the miracles and parables? He was not only a teacher, he was the living voice of God speaking to hearts that were wounded, confused, and thirsty for truth. Today, I want you to stay with me until the end, because we are going to go through 30 powerful teachings that Jesus gave us, and I promise that each of them has the power to change not only the way you see life, but also the way you face your battles. Because when we listen with the heart, the message of Jesus not only comforts, it also transforms. Breathe deeply. Be silent inside. And get ready, because what you will hear today may be exactly what you needed to take that step you have delayed so much, to heal that wound you still have not wanted to face or to trust again. In God, in yourself, and in the purpose you have in this life. 1. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:39. Jesus taught us that true love is neither selective nor conditional. He invites us to love even when we do not receive the same in return. When you learn to love others without expecting a reward, your heart is freed from pride, resentment, and ego. This is the kind of love that transforms relationships, families, and communities. 2. Do not judge, so that you will not be judged. Matthew 7:1. How many times do we point at others without knowing their story, their pain, their context? Jesus reminds us that judgment belongs only to God, and when we let go of that need to criticize, we make room to understand and to walk alongside. 3. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Matthew 5:4. Jesus never promised a life without pain, but he did promise us his comfort. Every tear has value for God. He sees your suffering, and his promise is clear. You do not cry alone, and comfort will come. 4. Whoever wants to be first must be the servant of all. Mark 9:35. In a world that applauds success, fame, and recognition, Jesus teaches us that true leadership is born from service. The more you serve with love, the greater you are in the kingdom of God. 5. Do not worry about tomorrow. Matthew 6:34. How many nights have you lost thinking about what has not yet happened? Jesus says to you, live one day at a time. Trust that God is in control, even of what you still cannot see. 6. Jesus taught that the kingdom of God begins in the heart. One of Jesus' most powerful teachings was that the kingdom of God is not a physical place you can point to on a map. It's not a castle or a nation. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is among you. Luke 17:21. What did he mean by that? He wanted you to understand that the kingdom of God begins in your heart when you choose to live according to his will. When you allow God's love, mercy, and justice to guide your thoughts, your words, and your actions. That is where his reign begins. Not in human structures, but in transformed hearts. And this calls us to a life of consistency, of authenticity. It's not enough to appear spiritual. We must live it from the inside out. If Jesus truly reigns in your heart, it will show in how you treat others, in how you face problems, in how you choose good even when no one is watching. 7. Jesus taught us to forgive without limits. This teaching is one of the hardest to practice, but also one of the most freeing. When Peter asked Jesus if he should forgive someone who had offended him up to 7 times, Jesus replied, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Matthew 18:22. Jesus was not giving us a literal number. He was teaching that forgiveness must be a lifestyle, that we should not keep a record of wrongs, but live with hearts free from resentment. Why? Because when you forgive, you are the first to heal. You are the one freed from the weight of bitterness. And it's not about justifying the wrong others have done. It's about letting go, allowing God to be the one who brings justice, and protecting your peace. Jesus knew that a wounded heart filled with hate cannot grow. That's why he showed forgiveness as a path to freedom. 8. Jesus taught that humility is greatness. In a world that exalts power, success, and recognition, Jesus came to show us that true greatness is found in serving. He himself, being the Son of God, knelt to wash his disciples' feet. John 13. That act, more than a simple cleaning, was an eternal lesson. If I, the Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. John 13:14. Jesus redefined leadership. For him, to lead is to serve, to love is to sacrifice, and to be great is to humble yourself, not out of weakness, but out of love. Because when you make yourself small by choice to lift others up, you reflect the heart of God. 9. Jesus taught that faith can move mountains. Jesus said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20. He was not literally talking about moving physical mountains. He was talking about the giants in your life, the problems that seem unbeatable, the illnesses, the debts, the fears, the closed doors. When Jesus spoke of that small yet powerful faith, it was so you would understand that it's not about having perfect or huge faith, but living faith. Faith that, even if small, is placed in a great God. Faith that, even if it trembles, even if it cries, even if it doubts sometimes, if it remains, it can witness miracles. Jesus taught you not to be ruled by the size of the obstacle, but to trust in the power of the one who can do all things. 10. Jesus showed that God seeks the broken. Did you know that Jesus was constantly criticized for sitting to eat with sinners, with tax collectors, and with women of bad reputation? The religious leaders of his time didn't understand this. But Jesus answered, I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Mark 2:17. This reminds us of something very important. God is not looking for perfect people. He looks for willing hearts. He seeks the broken, those who know they need help, those who admit their mistakes and come humbly. Jesus taught you that there is no stain so dark that he cannot cleanse, nor wound so deep that he cannot heal. 11. Jesus taught that love is the most important commandment. When asked what was the greatest commandment in the law, Jesus answered without hesitation, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And added, love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:37-39. The entire Christian life revolves around love. Not judgment, not empty rules, not appearances, but sincere love. Loving God with all you are, and loving others the way you wish to be loved. If you live this way, everything else finds its place. Jesus showed that love is not a feeling, but a daily choice to love even when it costs, to forgive even when it hurts, to listen even when you are tired, to serve even when no one sees, because that is how he loved. 12. Jesus taught us not to live in fear of tomorrow. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Matthew 6:34. He knew how much uncertainty torments us. What will happen to my health, to my children, to my finances? What if I lose this? What if that fails me? But Jesus invited you to live in the present, trusting that God is already in the future, that each day has enough trouble of its own, and that if he cares for the lily of the field and the birds of the air, how much more will he care for you? This teaching is a balm for the soul, because the fear of the future steals your peace, your joy, and your ability to enjoy what you have today. Jesus calls you to trust, to let go of control, to walk by faith and not by sight, because tomorrow is in the best hands, God's hands. **13. Jesus taught that serving is greater than being served. In one of the most striking scenes in the Gospels, Jesus, the Son of God, kneels to wash the feet of his disciples. In that time, this was a task reserved for the lowest-ranking servant. But Jesus, with a towel and a basin, showed what leadership in the kingdom of God truly means. He said, "Whoever wants to be first must be the servant of all." Mark 9:35. Can you imagine that? The highest becoming the lowest, to teach that true greatness is not in ruling, but in loving through service. And this is where many fail today, because they seek recognition, status, power. But Jesus showed you that the great ones in the kingdom are those who serve with humility, those who love without expecting anything in return. 14. Jesus taught us that prayer is an intimate encounter with God. Jesus didn't just teach with words, he taught by example. He would withdraw to lonely places to pray. He spent entire nights talking with the Father. And when his disciples asked him to teach them how to pray, he gave them the powerful Lord's Prayer, Matthew 6:9-13. But beyond a formula, Jesus taught us that prayer is communion. It's not about repeating empty phrases. It's about opening your heart. It's about crying if necessary. It's about giving thanks, asking, worshiping, surrendering. It's about returning to the center, the place where God listens to you, and you listen to God. If today you feel far away, return to prayer. You don't need fancy words. You only need sincerity. Because Jesus said, "Your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly." Matthew 6:15. Jesus taught us to forgive 70 times. 7. One of Jesus' most challenging teachings was this: "I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Matthew 18:22. This doesn't mean you should literally count 490 offenses. It means forgiveness should be a constant attitude. Why did Jesus insist so much on forgiveness? Because forgiveness sets you free. It doesn't justify what was done to you, but it breaks the chain that keeps you bound to the pain. Jesus knows that holding on to resentment consumes you from the inside, that bitterness robs you of peace. That's why he calls you to let go, to allow him to heal the wound. Forgiving is not forgetting. It's deciding not to carry it anymore. It's letting God be your defender and your judge. And it's making room in your heart for healing. 16. Jesus showed us that suffering has a purpose. No one suffered more unjustly than Jesus. He was betrayed, abandoned, tortured, crucified. And yet, in the midst of pain, he fulfilled the greatest purpose, to save the world. This teaches us that God never wastes suffering. Your pain, even if you don't understand it now, could be producing something eternal in you. Jesus never promised a life without trials, but he did promise to be with you through every one of them. He said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." John 16:33. So even if you can't see the reason now, even if everything hurts, trust there's a greater purpose you can't see yet. 17. Jesus taught that the kingdom of God is within you. Many people search for God in temples, in objects, in external signs. But Jesus said something profound. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. That means when you accept Jesus, something changes inside you. His Spirit begins to transform how you think, feel, and live. You no longer walk alone. You're no longer a slave to the past. You carry heaven within you. And that is one of the most powerful truths you can discover. Because the kingdom is not just a place you'll go after you die. It's a reality you can live today, here, inside your heart. 18. Jesus taught that we must love even our enemies. This teaching goes against all human logic. While the world says, "Give back what they did to you," Jesus says, "Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:44. Hard? Extremely? Possible? Only with God's love in your heart. Jesus is not asking you to allow abuse or ignore pain, but to live free from hatred. Because when you choose to love, you break the cycle of violence. You're saying, I won't look like the one who hurt me. I'll look like Christ. The love he taught is neither emotional nor shallow. It's a daily choice to act with compassion, even when you don't feel it. That is Spiritual PowerPoint 1.9. Jesus taught us that faith moves mountains. More than once, Jesus said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Matthew 17:20. It doesn't mean you'll literally move physical mountains, but that faith can change impossible situations. It can transform diagnosis, restore relationships, and open paths where none exist. And you don't need perfect faith, just living faith. Faith that says, I don't know how, but I know God can. Because faith is not denying reality. It's believing God is above it. 20. Jesus showed that humility is the path to exaltation. Jesus said, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Luke 14:11. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, applauded, and recognized, Jesus calls us to another way, the way of humility, the way of knowing that without him we are nothing, the way of serving without expecting praise, the way of yielding, keeping silent, loving quietly. And it is there, in that fertile ground of humility, that God plants his greatest purposes. For he does not share his glory with pride, but to the humble he lifts them up. 21. Jesus taught that children have a special place in the kingdom. When the disciples tried to keep the children away from Jesus, he said, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Matthew 19:14. This shows us the value Jesus gives to purity, simplicity, and complete trust. Children don't overcomplicate or overthink they trust. They give themselves, they believe. That's what he expects from you, to come with a childlike heart, to believe without reservation, to place no limits on his power. Because when you come with pure faith, heaven opens. 2:2. Jesus taught us that the heart matters more than appearances. Jesus confronted the Pharisees, not for what they did in public, but for what they hid in private. They looked religious, but their hearts were far from God. He said, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Matthew 15:8. Jesus calls you to live an authentic faith, not a facade. He's not looking for perfection, but sincerity. He doesn't care about your image. He cares about your inner transformation, because God sees what no one else sees. He hears your thoughts. He knows your intentions. And what he desires most is your heart. 23. Jesus taught that you cannot serve two masters. In Matthew 6:24. Jesus said, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. This teaching goes straight to the heart. Many times we say God is first, but in practice we give priority to material things, status, and the demands of the world. Jesus is not against you having things, but he is against things having you. He wants you to live free, with your heart set on the eternal, not the temporary. When your loyalty is divided, your life will be too. But when you decide to serve God alone, everything else falls into place. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. 24. Jesus reminded us that he is the bread of life. In John 6:35, Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. He wasn't talking about physical food, but something far deeper, the satisfaction of the soul. You can have everything this world offers and still feel empty. But when you feed on His Word, His presence, His love, everything changes. Your soul is satisfied. Jesus is the only one who can fill that emptiness no one else cannot success. Not a relationship, not money. Only Him. 25. Jesus taught that we must forgive 70 times 7. Peter asked Jesus how many times he should forgive. Up to 7 times? And Jesus replied, I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Matthew 18:22. That doesn't mean keeping count. It means understanding that forgiveness is not optional. It's a need for the soul. Holding onto resentment poisons you from the inside. It chains you to the past. But when you choose to forgive, you set yourself free, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve to live in peace. Jesus forgave us when we didn't deserve it. And now He calls us to do the same. Because forgiveness is not weakness, it is spiritual power. Asterisk, asterisk. 26. Jesus gave us the greatest commandment. Love God above all else. In Matthew 22:37. Jesus summed up the entire law in one commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Loving God is not just singing at church or owning a Bible. It's living for Him, consulting Him before making decisions, seeking Him in private, choosing Him over sin. When God is at the center, everything makes sense. And when you truly love Him, your life becomes a reflection of His love. 27. Jesus taught us to seek first the kingdom of God. Matthew 6:33 is one of the most powerful verses. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. That means if you put God first, He takes care of the rest. You don't need to rush, manipulate, or live in anxiety. Just seek Him, obey Him, and trust. The blessings you chase will reach you when your focus is in the right place. Because God never abandons those who seek Him with all their heart. 28. Jesus taught that we must deny ourselves. In Luke 9:23, Jesus said, If anyone wants to follow me, let them deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. Denying yourself is not hating yourself or ignoring your needs. It's recognizing that your will doesn't always align with God's. Following Jesus requires surrender, courage, and faith. Every day is a choice. Live for yourself, or live for Him. It's not easy, but it's the path to true freedom. When you die to yourself, your ego no longer rules your life. Jesus takes control, and that's when a truly transformed life begins. 29. Jesus promised He would be with us every day. Before ascending to heaven, Jesus left a beautiful promise. Surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. Maybe you felt alone, abandoned, like no one understands what you're going through. But Jesus has never left you. He's there in the silence, in the tears, in the moments of uncertainty. He walks with you even when you don't feel Him. And that promise is an anchor in the storm. You are not alone. He is with you, today, tomorrow, and forever. 30. Jesus taught that He is the resurrection and the life. When Lazarus had died, Jesus said something that changed everything. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. John 11:25. This is the very essence of Jesus' message. He came to give you life and life in abundance, not only here on earth, but for all eternity. Nothing is truly lost if Jesus is present. What seems dead, He can raise. What seems impossible, He can make possible. If today you feel something inside you is dry or without hope, remember this truth. Jesus is the resurrection. He can bring life back to your faith, your dreams, your soul. Conclusion: these 30 teachings of Jesus are not just nice phrases. They are life, truth, and direction for those who want to live differently. Jesus didn't come to offer a religion. He came to offer you a way, a truth, and a life that transforms from the inside out. Now, I invite you to reflect. Which of these teachings spoke most deeply to your heart today? Are you willing to let Jesus guide your life, your mind, and your steps? If this message touched your soul, don't leave without giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, and most importantly, sharing this video with someone who needs it. And if you want to keep growing in your faith, I invite you to watch the next video I'll leave at the end. It will be a blessing for you. Thank you for staying until the end. May God fill you with wisdom, peace, and faith. See you in the next video. Blessings.